right.
Oh
Just
my
hit
God.
me with whatever you got. Hit me with your best shot.
I got to do this all live. I'm not used to this. All right. So I'm here with Dave Conrey from Fresh Rag fame. And Dave recently wrote a book. Dave is a nonstop writer now. All he's doing is writing books nonstop and art and podcasting. It's crazy. But one of the books Dave wrote recently was The Gold is in the List. And so I'm really excited to have you on here, Dave, today. I guess you're here. I can talk to you. To talk about that book. I'm so used to doing a podcast intro. So, one of the cool things I loved about the book, Dave, was that it was really aimed at people in the hundreds. Like, it was aimed at people that haven't achieved their first 1,000 yet. And I really loved how there were a lot of tips, there's a lot of support, but it was for people at the beginning of the curve still, because so many of the podcasts and the newsletter out there and the webinars seem to be by people that are at their, like, they've got 100 million people on their list or 50,000, and they're like, oh, you just do this, you just do that, and you share with Bob, and he shares with you, and you get your first 1,000 like that overnight.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's been a grueling, one a day, I get one a day, right? So maybe we could start there, like just talking about, what it was like for you, sort of your journey with your list, just high level, like, what it was like for you building your list and.
Yeah. And so there is something to be said for the guys that have built the big lists, right? I mean, we can learn lessons from them, but we don't necessarily have to embellish or, embody everything that they're about. But, the way that it started for me, the aha moment for me was that when it was just like, I was struggling just like you, just like everybody else who, struggles, especially I see this very much within the creative world, because it's almost as if they're reluctant to put themselves out there enough to say, be on my list for a number of reasons. Number one, do people really care what I have to say? Number two, what am I going to say? Right. What am I going to share? Right. That type of stuff. And I've gotten to this point where I've understood, like, okay, not everybody's going to be me, right? Not everybody's going to be able to write the 1,000-word diatribes that I can at the drop of a hat, right? Not even everybody's going to be comfortable with that. Not everybody's going to be okay with putting my stuff out there and just being okay with that. But so I don't know if I have a slight unfair advantage, because I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to do whatever I can to do it. And I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be the human guinea pig, and I'm going to do these things. I'm going to see what works. And that's really what it came down to. Is like, I just experimented with different things until it worked. And I was really reluctant at first to do the lead magnet, right? The get your free ebook or get this free thing for the list, because I was like, well, everybody does that. And, does anybody really want that stuff? And the truth is they do a little bit, and I can't say, I mean, it depends on the content that you're providing, right? When you do those lead magnets. But if you're providing genuine, valuable content to some degree that is exclusive to those people, not only does it help them because you're giving them something they need, but it's also like, hey, I'm in this kind of exclusive club. And as long as you're maintaining that feeling with each new mailing that you put out, or everything that you do share with them on that newsletter list, as long as it stays consistent, then it's like there's just this constant growth. It's like people feel great that they got this free thing, and then they're continuing to get free content from you, whatever that might be. And then it's like just today, I had someone on Twitter not only talk about this book, but also talk about the list, right? Get the book and then go get on his list, right? Or vice versa, right? Go do those two things, because you can't miss, this stuff. And I need to send her a big fat present or something, because she does that so often. But it's like that, right? It's you get them in the door, and then you keep feeding them, and they're just like, wow, then it becomes voracious. And then they start telling their friends, and they tell their friends, and next thing you know, it blows up. So.
And I love that you, in the book, so lead magnet, right? Let's just cover that really quick. Lead magnet is, right, that offer, the thing, right, that join my list and you can get immediate access to this thing, right? Is that a good example?
Yeah, and it could be anything. It could be an ebook, could be a simple white paper, like
Right.
it could be only people on my list get deals on my stuff, right? That kind of thing,
Right.
or whatever, right?
And so what I loved, one of the things in your book is you actually shared your story of exploring the lead magnets and some of the failures. You're like, so I think one of the early ones you had was, I forget the order now. I remember you
Well, there was Selling Art Online, which was, it started out as a series of blog posts, and I turned it into a book, and then that turned into a real book, and so then it was Get Up and Dance, which was kind of like a little bit of life lessons, but like poorly, like it just wasn't well executed. And then
Selling Art Online was working, right? When you had it as not as the book, you had it as like a package. It was working.
Yeah.
Right? People were signing up for your list, and then you tried the Get Up and Dance.
Yeah, well, because I knew that because Selling Art Online was doing so well, I was like, okay, people would probably buy this. So that's when I turned it into a book, and it's still my number one best-selling book by far. And I was like, well, I got to replace it with something, right? So I kind of quickly crafted Get Up and Dance, and it worked, but it wasn't like, number one, it wasn't the best content I'd done, and it wasn't what my people were asking for necessarily. It was just like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. I'll do this, right?
And I love that in the book. You talked about the insight when it hit you. This wasn't solving a problem they had.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally it was like, I got smart about the whole deal, and I wrote the next most popular one was the Maker's Dozen, which is it's basically 13 places you can sell other than Etsy. And because that's kind of my crew, right? That's the people that I work with or talk to, the creative entrepreneurs like that. They're interested in that stuff, especially because Etsy was a very hot button issue at that time. And people were thinking should I jump ship? Should I go somewhere else? What should I do? And, so I was like, well, I was going to take advantage of that. I know this is a hot topic, and it works, right? It works and people get the thing, and it's great.
And it was a nicely designed like PDF. I got it, right? Walking through each of the places that you could sell. Yeah. And so
I kept it simple. I mean, again, I have a design background, and I work with multi-page publications that was my life before this life. And so I have an unfair advantage there, but
yeah, simple for me is like stick figures on a piece of paper. So this was much beyond that.
Right. Yeah. So a slight unfair advantage, but it's nothing. I mean, I just have a lot more spit and polish on my stuff, and it could easily be done in Word with a nice, nicely designed cover. Get somebody on Fiverr to design you a cover, or have somebody do the full thing for you if you want to. If it's worthwhile, the investment is worthwhile of what you might get out of those people, because they may be on your list for years, and they might buy your stuff forever and ever. So.
Yeah, so I highly recommend people go out and read The Gold is in the List, because I know a lot of the people that I asked recently, somebody's drag racing around.
Yo, it was a motorcycle went by. I'm surprised that actually was so loud. That was weird.
So, anybody that answered back when I did my request and was talking about list building, I highly recommend The Gold is in the List. It's a great book. It's really not that expensive. It's on Amazon. And so what we're talking right now is about the lead magnets, which is that offer, that thing, right? And what are you doing now? Is it still the Maker's Dozen?
Yeah, Maker's Dozen is the main one, and it'll probably be that one for a little while.
And that one's working, right? That's helping build your list.
Yeah. I I kind of threw myself for a loop because I redesigned my site, and I haven't integrated all of my opt-ins that I had before. So I'm not getting quite the growth that I did, but I'm still getting some growth from it.
Okay. So. And are you talking about like? Go ahead. Sorry. You're talking about the different like pop up and the different at the bottom, like the different ways on your page opt-in.
Yeah, multiple. Like on the sidebar, in the bottom, and the footer, and then the pop up top, and the head bar, and all that stuff. I had all that stuff. I had it all going on. And I thought, let's simplify this a little bit and see how it works. And it still works. The pop up is probably still the most primary one. I probably want to do one at the bottom of posts, just because I think that that's a natural progression. People read to the bottom, and boom, there it is. So things like that. Just trying to clean up my act a little bit, I guess.
And so you've seen a drop off though in the growth. With the only thing you changed was the number of places to sign up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so far. And yeah, and it's the thing is also I had before as one on the sidebar that was very graphically oriented towards Makers Doesn't. Like you saw the graphic there, it said Makers Doesn't, get it free.
Right,
And
I remember that.
I don't have that right now, and I'm debating whether it's something I want to add back in, whether it's even viable, because now that I don't remember, is it Apple or iOS or the ad blocker thing? Mm. Like that stuff's going to disappear, right? And especially since it's on mobile, mostly most people are viewing on mobile. That's one of the last things they see at the bottom of the page now because the sidebar drifts to the bottom.
Right.
So it makes me think like, well, maybe I should be figuring out different ways to integrate that. Like maybe it's just a text bar inside every post, somewhere, so that they just see that. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some sort of graphic. I don't know. I don't want the content to get blocked just because something looked like an ad while it was in the content. You know what I mean? So we got to figure that out. It's that's kind of like new territory. It's like nobody knows how that's all going to work out yet. So we'll see.
So one of the things you talked about in the book, and it's one of the things I think a lot of people struggle with. So far we talked about a bit in just high level, like what's the offer. We talked a little about where you place the offers is important. And that's changing with mobile. But you also talked a book, you really address the biggest question, which is how much to share and how often. Versus everyone says it's the what, but the reality is, right, we have limited time. And we're like, oh God, do I have to send a newsletter every day? Like, do I have to write it from scratch?
Yeah. If you do the newsletter every day, I I recommend you not have anything else going on because that will take you forever. I had that.
And I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm like, nope, daily, gone.
Right. Right. And it's like, yeah, that's too much. That's an interesting balance because there's no one right answer, right? I mean, it's going to depend on, number one, what kind of content you're providing. Number two, what your people want. And, I mean, it's good to find that information out once in a while. Don't be afraid to put out a little poll to your people saying, hey, how often would you like to hear from me? And what kind of stuff would you like to hear? What kind of stuff do you like about what I'm providing? What would you like to see more? What would you like to see less? That kind of stuff. Just to find this stuff out and feel your way through it, because a lot of times we're just like shooting from the hip. I mean, again, Get Up and Dance was a shoot from the hip move, and it didn't work for me. But I got some people, but it didn't get a lot of people. And actually, I ended up losing people faster. I was like losing more people from it faster than I was gaining, which is also a big issue, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so there is no one right answer. The one thing that is important is consistency. So if you decide once a week, do it once a week. If you decide every other week, do it every other week. If you decide once a month, do that, right? But I just got an email from, I can't remember the brand, a fairly large brand. I want to say Rocket Boom. I don't remember exactly. Or was it, I don't know. It's one of these other larger kind of new platform brands. And I hadn't heard from them in 5-6 months. All of a sudden, hey, we've got all this new stuff. Come buy from us, right? It's like, well, fuck you, right? Sorry,
I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
Right? Yeah, I'm like done.
Yeah.
I'm like, goodbye, right?
Yeah.
In an instant, I was like, because I not only did I feel like I can't associate with you anymore because I don't even know what you're about, but it's just like I feel like you've broken the trust that we had, right? I gave you my email address and I expected something in return, not just to have you show up all of a sudden and pitch me with something.
With coupons or whatever, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I joined to get the value that you're offering.
Yeah.
Right. You know what? I loved what you said in the book about just asking them. It's one of the reasons that I did the survey. So I recently did an email survey to my list. I have it was like a few hundred people on my list, and I just sent out a survey saying, what's keeping you up at night? I just asked, what do you want to know? What do you want to know more about? What are you struggling with? And I got to tell you, Dave, it was amazing. This is happening here right now because so many people wrote back and said, building a list, right? Yeah. And everything around it. And I was like, I hadn't even thought about talking about that. And it's the thing I struggle with, right? I've been trying to build my list. And yeah, so it's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to be exhaustive about it, right? It could just be a couple of questions.
Yeah, I sent 3 questions.
Right. Yeah. It could be anonymous, as long as you're getting the core content, right? And you want to be, when you do that, it's a good idea to be as succinct as possible. Like, not necessarily that you want to limit their options too much, but you don't want to give them long form, open-ended questions on every single question, because then you're going to be doing a lot of reading and you won't see any consistency, right? It's better to have, keep it tight, keep your answers short and simple, and that way you can at least kind of gauge. In fact, it's funny because gold is in the list actually started by that process, right? I mean,
Really?
yeah, I was talking to my people, like in my group, my Facebook group, Fresh Drug Army, about what to write next, right? And I had some ideas, like I knew inside myself, like, okay, I think I want to write about list building. But before I just jumped into it, I wanted to find out, okay, so let's ask. So I put a poll out there and I gave a list of things. And one of the things, like the top thing was actually Facebook ads, which this is your area, right? This is not my area, right? Or let's say, definitely a lot more about it than I do. And so maybe you should write a book. But I was like, well, I can't write that. I mean, I could, but it'd be like not great. And then the next most popular one was email list building. And then there were some other things like Etsy selling and other little things. And those all dropped off real fast. So the top 2 were by far Facebook ads, which I don't know anything about. And then email list building. It's like, boom, okay, well, proof of concept right there. So I knew what I was writing and I wrote it, and it's been well received ever since. So
Yeah, I loved it. And so, one of the, and you were just talking about providing value in a list, right? When we join a list, there's some kind of contract that's being made, right? Where I'm expecting value. When I join Dave's list, there's a certain thing that I'm expecting, right? But you also talked about how I love that you said people are jaded about joining lists, right? So go ahead.
no, I would just say, yeah, it's because they're just inundated, right? I mean, they get them there's so many lists. And it's kind of the reason why lead magnets work, or why you need a lead magnet to some degree, is because it's like you have to build up some sort of trust. You have to build up some sort of enticement to get people in the door. Mm-hmm. And it kind of sucks to some degree that's the way it is, right? You have to dangle the carrot first before you can get anybody in, for people to just sign up and just like, well, I just want to get your content. Yeah. I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that, but basically, yeah, it's like they just don't. I guess they're just tired of getting emails over and over and over again about things that they think they cared about originally, but then they don't care so much about. And so each time they sign up for a newsletter list, and then it turns out to be not what they expect or not what they want, they unsubscribe, and then they're less likely to join the next one. And if they do find another one and that same thing happens again, well, it's like, well, then it's just a little bit more reticent, a little bit more each time. And so, delivering, I mean, email still works great, but I anticipate that there's an era coming where it won't, and who knows how long that'll be. I still think it works really great, but it's possible that might change. Then everybody will have their own podcast.
There'll be a mobile SMS service that you join.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh man. I saw a conversation, I forget the guy's name, internet marketer guy, who talked about that at a conference that I went to. And it was like, everybody was like, oh man, this is the next new thing. Everybody's going to be doing this. It's so great. It's awesome. And like the whole time I just felt like I need a shower, like I just can't see myself sending text messages to people.
I know.
Like that's the last territory that's like, no, you can't have my phone number.
And everything I've seen, it's all just sell, sell, sell. It's the opposite of what we're saying to do in newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Provide value, provide value, provide value.
Yeah.
You had a great thing. It was early in your book. I think it's chapter 2. You wrote, I love this. I want to talk a little about this because I felt this. So many sellers will spend hours on social media talking to people who have even less interest in buying from them, yet they bail on an email list at the first sign of adversity.
Yeah. Again, I think this is just one of those things where it's like, I've got to put myself out there. right? And it's easy to put out something in a 140 character tweet, right? Or a picture of a finely crafted image of my product sitting on a shelf with all these little accoutrements right next to it, and put that on Pinterest, right? That's easy.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to put myself there, right? But then you start talking about words, like, oh, well, that's like from my mouth and my brain, and that's like personal stuff, like I got to do that? No, no. That's not for me. Or I don't know what, it's like just plain, like, I don't know what to talk about. I did this piece of art recently where let me see if do I have it here? Hold on. I want to make sure I paraphrase myself really well. Here it is. Since we're on camera, I'll hold it up for everybody. I don't know if anybody can see that.
Nice.
It says, I wish I could paint like you, but I'm not creative. Right. And it's like, that's like the same thing. It's like, I wish I could write like you, but I'm not that creative.
It's the voice in our head, right? Anything we start to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's the thing. It's like they run from that because it's probably unfamiliar territory to them. And, they read these other email newsletters and they think, oh, well, Dave's so good at writing. I could never be like that. I'm like, well, yes, you could. You don't need to be like me, right? Again, you don't need to write the 1,000 word diatribes. People get they always say, oh my gosh, you're writing so much, Dave. I could never be that way. It's like, well, you don't have to. That's just me. That's my thing, right? So I don't know. It's
Yeah, I follow newsletters where somebody sends me a sketch a day. I love it, right? I follow other ones like you where, well, you've changed your format now, but where it was long articles. Loved it. You're right. Yeah. Everyone's different, right? Everyone's got to find their...
Yeah. And that's actually another thing is like trying new things there because I want to see what works. I mean, one of my favorite newsletters ever is from Austin Kleon, the artist.
Yeah.
Artist, poet. I don't know what you'd call him exactly. Right? He's like me. He's a Renaissance, right? And it's like 10 links. Like he's got a single sentence with a link in there to something.
It all fits right there.
Right. Yeah. It's like a drawing, one of his illustrations or one of his pictures or some sort of illustration, and then his 10 links, and like, boom, that's easy. And it's like, okay, well, I can't be that succinct. I'm not that. Brevity is not always my strong suit, right? But I like that format, and so that's what I changed. I want to see like how could I change this up a little bit to provide value, be short and quick, right? So it's like I'm also practicing a little bit of the short and quickness myself because, I don't want to write. I don't want to be the guy that only writes the 1,000 words, 2,000 words, So not everywhere.
One of the things I really loved about the book, for anybody just watching this video, is that it's geared for someone that literally is starting at zero. And it'll take you all the way to your first 1,000. But it also works really well for those of us that are sitting in the hundreds that are thinking, like me, like, how do I get over that 1,000 hump? A lot of books, will lay out all the options, right? Like Selling Art Online did a great job of that, laying out all the different options. But in the gold is in the list. Like, I love that you just said, you know what? Here's the 2 platforms to think about with email. And if you're not sure, go with MailChimp. I just love it. You're like, you know what? Just go here.
Right. Well, there's a bazillion of them out there, right? I mean, too many choices, and there's no reason why you need to suffer from that much. And MailChimp is an extremely competent service. I recommend them highly. And, from a design standpoint, you go to MailChimp's interface and it's like, this is beautiful. This is nice. This works. I get it. I understand it. The flow makes sense to me. Whereas like other ones like Aweber or iContact, it's like, they're just not.
It's a nightmare.
I mean, I can't say anything about iContact now, but when I was using it back in the day, it was like, it just wasn't that great.
Or Constant Contact. Remember that? What a nightmare those templates were. Yeah,
right. Everything. I mean, just like awful. And it's still crazy to me that like Aweber, which is like, I think they're the top, they might be the top as far as paid ones, it's like strictly paid, that they're still operating at that level. Even in 2015, late 2015, they're still operating like that. They haven't gotten on the bus, I think it's going to be to their detriment. It's like when InDesign finally just ate Quark's lunch, and I got total design geek right there for a second. But Quark Express is just like, no, we're holding true to our values here. We're going to stay incredibly difficult to use and hard to manage.
Adobe is photo. They'll never understand the design world.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. And now it's like, I couldn't operate Quark if I knew how to. If it was like free to have, like, do Quark, like, I don't even know what. Anyway.
Tangent. It's a perfect thing. There were people who survived because they knew how to use Quark, and no one else did in the pre-press realm. Because it was so complex in pre-press, right? And the same thing. There are consultants out there whose sole job is to help you configure the power of Aweber, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're right. MailChimp is slowly. We've got automation now. We've got all these things, or segmentation, are creeping in, right? They may actually eat them. Yeah.
Well, and they just integrated another new service, and I'm blanking on it right now. But it's basically selling through.
Oh yeah, I saw that
through Amazon or through MailChimp.
Yeah,
and it's gonna make that whole process, because they have Mandrill, which is their higher end kind of like their database driven. I can't remember what the code aspect of it is, but basically that's for the code heads, right? For doing that stuff, to be able to integrate between buying and mail lists, and and segmenting really deeply. And it works, right? It's really good stuff, but it's still very. I mean, it's like I wouldn't even touch it.
It's not entry level for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not entry level by any stretch. But this new thing is going to be a little. I wouldn't say it's entry level, but it's definitely. It's not super advanced. It's definitely intermediate advanced, somewhere in there, but something that people can strive for.
Well, that's why I loved your recommendation, because MailChimp is great for the beginner. It's easy to start, but it's starting to have a lot of the features that we need as we start to get to building bigger lists.
Yeah.
So I thought it was on. And I want to talk, there are so many little tidbits and tips and tricks throughout this book that I loved. One of them was so awesome. It just made me go, why aren't I doing that? And I think I figured out how to do it in Squarespace. But you basically talked about Sells, SCLZ.
Yeah.
And how if you sell something on Sells, you can put in an opt-in button to, hey, find out about new products on my newsletter or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's no different than, like, say, if you were on Shopify, and I think, like you said, Squarespace, some of these other more selling oriented platforms. But if you're not on one of those platforms, or maybe if you've got WooCommerce, they've all kind of have this integration now. They finally get it. But Sells had it a while back. They had it early on, because they were kind of like, Gumroad had come out, but Gumroad was, they were really well. Gumroad was really pretty, but it ended up like not being as robust as it could have been. And I think Sells kind of came in and said, well, we can kind of eat their lunch a little bit here, and they did. They added some of these aspects early on, and it was just like, that makes sense, right? That why wouldn't you have that over Gumroad? And I think Gumroad finally integrated it recently, but yeah. So it's so simple, right? You go to a website. If you go to Amazon, you're signing up for their list, essentially. You buy something on Amazon, you sign up for the list. It says there. You can opt out, I guess, but but all these other big websites do this. Why wouldn't you do this?
Yeah.
Right? At least give people that option to opt in or opt out.
I wasn't doing it. I may not still be doing it, but I remember writing down a to-do list, like, figure out how to give people the option to say, I want to join you. Because someone that says, I want to buy your art, they're clearly a fan, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I love it. It was a great idea. And I loved how you were showing how it sells. If I don't have e-commerce as an artist, I could still sell something easily and get them into my list.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, and this is slightly tangent, but Etsy is kind of like, I have a beef with that, because you can't.
Closed door. It's all down. Stay away.
Yeah. Right. It's your email. If you're on Etsy and selling, your email belongs to Etsy, not the person that you actually bought from. Right.
Oh.
And so it sucks for the seller, because then they have no way to really have a consistent way to reach out to you.
Well, you've talked recently, right, about a seller who had their store shut down, and they had orders mid-process, and they couldn't even contact the Etsy people. They had no way to contact Etsy people, say, we want to ship your order.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, and it was, I believe it was digital products, but it was before digital products were automatic. Like, because back now you can do digital downloads instantly, right? But before it was like you had to send an email, right? Or you sent a message, here's the link to it. And they couldn't do that, right? They got shut down. Well, granted, it was their fault for getting shut down because they were doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing. But
still, as
right.
You don't own the relationship when you're going through Etsy.
Right.
Which is the key to a newsletter. Building a newsletter means you can own them. You can speak to these people that are your followers, your fans. You don't have to rely on Facebook. Facebook could go down tomorrow. You can still speak to your customers.
Yeah.
Or your tribe, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of the biggest issues I've had with Etsy since I really started getting into this whole list building thing. It's like, God, man, this is one of the reasons. Like, I'm not an Etsy hater by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely think that that's one thing that just like that, if they could fix anything, that would change the lives of a lot of sellers, I think. And I just don't think that they're going to ever. I mean, Amazon wouldn't do it either. So, same thing, I guess.
So, for somebody that's sitting there, let's say they have, like me, I had 13 people in my newsletter a year ago, right? And 3 of those were my mom. Right? Thanks, Mom. Love the support. As we wrap up, what do you, there's a lot to think about. You're just starting your newsletter. You got you're under 100. What should people think about? Where do they start?
Okay. Man. Well, okay. So I would start with definitely figuring out if you're not really doing anything consistent yet, right? Figuring out how much you want to change your newsletter to make it valuable to people, right? And what is that value going to be? Figure that out. Find that out. Again, this might be one of those things where you're asking your people. Even if you don't ask your list, you ask if you have a Facebook group, if you have a Facebook page, if you have a Pinterest, group or whatever. Ask these people somehow. Reach out to Twitter people and just say, hey, would you mind filling this out? Just because I'd be curious what you want to hear from me. Find that out. And then once you find that out, figure out how can I serve that within the timeline that I have available, right? You don't want to necessarily have to kill yourself over this thing because you still obviously have to do work. You have to do, other marketing. You have to make things. You have to manage your external life, right? Or your whatever the rest of your world, right? So
the whole family thing,
right? The whole family, right? Those other duties that you have, children. No, figuring out how you're going to manage that and how much time it's going to take you to do that little thing. And like again, Austin Kleon posts a list of 10 things every single day or every single week, and that's his thing. And he's got 20,000 people on that list. Now, granted, he's built that list over time, not just from that, but through all of his other actions, right? I mean, he drives people to his list from his social media outlets and in his books and stuff like that, right? He drives people there to that, but he's got this huge list, and it's simple, like a basic, super simple stuff. And as long as it's fun and simple and easy for people to consume, that they're going to do that, right? They're going to jump on and like, okay, I'm into this. And so I would just figure out, okay, how can I serve? How can I serve somebody simply and easily? And then make that declaration and say, okay, well, I'm going to do this every other week, and it's going to be this, and just do that. And you do it consistently for at least a reasonable amount of time to say, okay, there's certain things I know that are hitting and certain things I know that are not. Right. And then maybe I do more of those, right? A little bit more of those and less of those. Or maybe it's like, okay, I'm okay with the process I've done, and I probably could step this up a little bit more. Let's find out if people want more of this, right? So let's say you want to go from every 2 weeks to once a week. Ask your people, hey, would you like more of this? And if they say yes, then say, okay, well, they'll boost this up. And then, of course, figure out something that you can, if you want to do the lead magnet thing, you don't have to do the lead magnet thing, but you've got to be able to figure out how to provide some sort of value to get people in the door in the first place. Mm-hmm. If it's not a lead magnet, then you're telling people this information that's on this list is exclusive to the people that are on this list. Like nobody outside this list gets this information.
Which is still sort of a lead magnet, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. It's just not a downloadable PDF that
Right.
people are just going to download and then put on their desktop and never open.
But
Right.
it's something, it's saying this is the special offer that you get when you join the list.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And so it's like, I've been doing this on my DaveConrey.com list where it's like, I'm writing my next book and it's all about selling art, like how I would sell art. Right. And I'm doing it, like I already had my outline of what the book would be about. So I started writing those bits, but I started releasing them to that email list. And only the people that are on that email list are getting that content. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the thing. You want to know how I would sell art? Go over there and subscribe, right? Because nobody else is going to get that. And that's kind of been the process I've been going through with that. And that seems to be working. And I even tried another experiment over there where I've recently changed it. Like just recently changed over to having a shop on that page and having a blog because I was really doing it as sparsely as I possibly could. People would go there and they'd say, listen, there's no blog here. There's nothing really to see except for a little bit of about page information about me. This is who I am. If you want to know more about the things that I do, whether it's the writing, the art, the podcasting, subscribe to the list, and that's how you get the information. So it's like everybody who goes there needs to be on the exclusive list to get any information about me. It was an experiment, and it worked a little bit, but what I found out, here's what I found out. My list was small. It is small still. But I had a really high open rate comparatively because the people that signed up were truly dedicated. Yeah. Right. Again, the lead magnet was that, okay, you're not getting a free PDF. You're getting value once you get inside. And you have to take a leap of faith to get that. Right. You don't know what that content is yet. But once you get in, you'll find it.
So it's people that already probably have or want a stronger relationship with you is who you're getting there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I found that too, right? Like I asked literally the question, what keeps you up at night? And when I shared this to a few people, everyone said, you can't ask that question at your list, right? Like you're just going to get back, the rent, the war in, Syria, and I thought about it for a long time, but I said, what, I'm just going to send it. And I tell you, Dave, I don't have a large list, but I was blown away by the depth of people's responses.
Yeah.
Right. And it just showed me the value is, right. I have a slower building list, but it's the same thing. My open rates are high. I think I've got a real potential connection there. Right.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that was one of the things I did early on with my fresh rag list was I asked that question, what do you need help with? That wasn't my exact question, but
that's a great question.
Like, what do you want to hear more from? Like what, kind of the same idea. What keeps you up at night, right? Or what, but it's just this idea of like getting them to answer a question that nobody asked them, and they do. I would get, big, long paragraphs of text from people, like big, long letters from people about this stuff. And it's great, because here's the twofold, right? You're getting to hear what people need to hear from you, right? So they're basically telling you what you need to be writing about or what you need to be sharing or what, and that works for, you and I, Sean, because this is the kind of stuff we deliver this kind of content. Not everybody delivers the kind of content that we necessarily deliver, right? We're not trying to be the mentor or the coach or whatever. Some people just want to make art and sell that, but there's probably some question that you can ask that will get people's interest, to enough to answer that. What is your, what do you want to know more about art? What do you want to know more about craft?
Right. Or if you're an artist and just about the art you create, what do you want to know more about me and what I do?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? What intrigues you? Yeah, I think you're right. There's always a question.
Yeah, there's always one question that just like, at least it starts the conversation. And the other trick is that once you do get an email back from somebody, you respond.
Always.
Because it's just like this, you connected the loop, right? You've made the loop. You sent an email that they know was automated, right? Hopefully it was automated, so that you don't have to constantly type that out every single time. But it's automated, so they send an email to you with their long response, and then you respond back with a simple, hey, thanks for that. I really appreciate that. This is going to help me. And if there's anything I can do for you, blah, blah, blah. The craziest things happens, like, oh my God, you actually responded.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the first. And then, again, it's like you've solidified that relationship with that person.
And you know what? I think it's a really good point, Dave, because I know when I get these like, will you answer these 3 questions often? And they're often when I just join a list from one of these mentor types.
Yeah.
It's always a test for me when I answer. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this. But in my mind, I'm thinking, you're just putting this in a database, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm testing them by giving them something real. And a lot of them don't respond. And I'm like, yep, that's it. It's not real, right?
Yeah.
The ones that do, you make a really good point. It's like suddenly I'm like, this person really cares. Like there's something real here.
Yeah. And at a certain point, if you are getting your list into the tens of thousands, it gets a little difficult to answer all those. So, there's you kind of dance with the devil on that one a little bit. But while you're small, while you are trying to build those relationships, before you become the big fancy artist on Instagram or whatever, or on the internet or whatever, interact with people, be real with people, and they will love you for it. I guarantee you. Yeah.
So for people that are looking to build their list, Dave, start their list, build their list, and build trust and value with this relationship. So that you can promote your work or build a living, whatever it is. Where do they go to find more about this book and more about Dave Conrey?
They go. Well, that's funny. God, there's so many different places now. That's it. If you want the book, it's really simple. Freshdrag.com/gold. Right, that'll take you directly to the Amazon link. You can go get the book right now, and then you can get it in the Kindle version, or you can get it in the print, and you can get it automatically printed out. If you want more information about what I'm about, you can go to freshdrag.com. And if you'd like to see the crazy art stuff that I'm doing, go to daveconrey.com.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate you doing this.
No problem. Gladly, anytime. And next time I'll be on time.
Once again, I want to thank Dave Conrey for coming on the show. And please go out and get a copy of his book, The Gold is in the List. And you can do that at freshdrag.com/gold. Highly recommend this book for anyone out there that's looking to build their list. And as always, you can learn more, join my newsletter, and get a copy of my book, Creators 2.0, by going to the link that's on the screen now.